What's up, YouTubers? PokeJediTrek's here. So today I have another fantastic cooking video for you. For those of you who have birthdays during the summer, I'm going to be showing you how to bake cakes from scratch. Now, some of you may, and I'm only going to show you how to make this because I'm aware there are some people who can't consume, who have health conditions that make them unable to consume cakes made from conventional mix bought in stores. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be showing you how to make it from scratch, especially with what I'm going to show you for the ingredients. You can actually use healthier alternatives to what I'm about to show you how to make. So let's go over what we need. So to make cakes, you're going to need some butter as well as buttermilk. You also need flour, vanilla. You'll also need sugar, baking powder, eggs, and salt. Now, some of you are wondering, why not just buy the mix? Why not buy a mix from stores? Well, if I bought a mix from stores, it would defeat the purpose of this video. So let's get started. So first things first, you're going to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So first things first, you're going to add 2 sticks of butter to a mixing bowl. And then you're also going to add 1 3/4 of a cup of sugar. What you're going to do is you're going to mix all this butter and the sugar together until it's light and fluffy. If you don't have an electric mixer, you're going to have to manually mix it up with a fork by hand or with a wire whisk. But although it's a very grueling process. So ideally, you're going to want to make sure the butter is soft, and you're going to stir this around for about 6 minutes or until it's all light and fluffy. So next you're going to add 4 eggs, one at a time. You're going to crack the shells open on the edge of the bowl, and you're going to add 4 eggs. Be sure to crack only one at a time, then mix it together before you add another. So next you're going to mix in 1 whole tablespoon of vanilla extract. So now for this next step, you're going to need 3 cups of either cake or all-purpose flour. And make sure it's leveled out so you get the exact amount. Then next you're going to add a tablespoon of baking powder. And yes, I had to get a bigger bowl because that bowl I was using was too small. Anyway, a tablespoon of baking powder. So now you're going to whisk together the ingredients. Oh, and I also forgot to add, you also need to add a half a teaspoon of salt to the mix as well. So now this next part is really tricky because as you're mixing, you're going to continue mixing up the pan, but this is the trickiest part because you're going to mix slowly, and then you're only going to pour just about half of the mixture into the bowl, and you're going to combine it all together. And here's where it gets really tricky. After you mix a third, you're going to alternate between adding another. You're going to add 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk to the mixture. And then you're going to add another, then you're going to mix that up and add another third of the flour mixture to the container, and then another 3/4 of buttermilk, and then the last of the mixture until everything is combined. And this is a very grueling, and as you can tell, this is a very grueling process. But final product ought to come out pretty well in the end. And that's how the final product, and that's how the cake batter should look like. Now, before we move on to this next step, this would be a good opportunity for you, depending on if you want to add any, fixins to the cake batter, like chocolate chips or candy sprinkles. And it's kind of up, or even cocoa powder if you want chocolate cake. So, but in this case, I'm going to keep it yellow and classic, because the purpose is to give you a general idea of how to bake cakes from scratch. Now for this next part, you're going to need a cake pan. Now depending on how much you're going to need a cake pan. You can use round or square, it doesn't matter. And then this next part, you're going to take some non-stick spray and you're going to spray it all around the insides of the pan. You got to remember to do this, unless otherwise specified by the recipe, to spray down your pans. Then you're going to add the whole entire batter, and then you're going to add as much batter as you can to the mix. And depending on if you intend to make, and depending on how many layers and depending on the size of your cake, like how many layers you're going to stack on top, you may need to increase or decrease the size of your cake. You may have to add more or less batter and put them in another plate depending on the size of your cake. So now you're going to set this. So you're going to set this in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're going to let it bake for 35 minutes. Now, while our cake is baking, I would like to offer you some advice about the next part of the cake. Now, you cannot frost cakes if you intend to frost your cakes, you can't immediately frost them after pulling them out of the oven. You gotta let the cakes cool before you can frost them. And if you intend to have your whole entire cake with more than one layer, you gotta cut off the bottom layers before you can add the top. And be sure to frost them beforehand. And then, once you have frosted your cake, then you can add the sprinkles and whatever you'd like to, and add sprinkles and other toppings on top of the cake. Just some advice. And not only that, but the frostings themselves, you can add, and not only that, but you probably never knew this, but you can actually add you can actually change the color of white frosting to all sorts of colors. Like you just need food coloring. And here's the good thing about food coloring. It's got no taste. And what you can do, some other things you can do with the food coloring is alter the colors depending on the occasion for the cake. Like say it's somebody's birthday. Say you're observing the birthday of a woman of somebody of the female sex whose namesake is a flower, like a daisy or a rose or a petunia or a violet. And what you can do is create colors modeled after the designated flower. Or say it's Halloween. You can use white and make ghost faces or jack-o'-lanterns, or you could even do a spider design. Or at Christmas, or if you're serving a dessert at Christmas, you can combine like holly leaf green or Santa suit red. Or say it's the 4th of July, you can probably do red, white, and blue modeled after the American flag. Or pink and red if you're observing Valentine's Day. Or say at Easter you can do patterns modeled after Easter eggs, and even yellow and chartreuse green. Or even light blue and purple for Easter. Just throwing in some ideas for those who intend to frost their cakes depending on the occasion. And just thought I'd throw some ideas out there. Anyway, we're gonna let our cake bake, and then we'll let it cool and I'll sample it, and we can move forward. One last thing I forgot to add about the leftover batter. You can lick the batter, but don't lick too much, okay? Because there's raw eggs in there, and you don't want to face the health consequences of consuming raw eggs. All right, 15 minutes all right, so 35 minutes have passed. Let's take this cake out of the oven. And now, before we can progress any further, we got to make sure that the cake is done. And one of the ways to determine if a cake is done is you got to shove a toothpick through the center and make sure it's clean. If it's clean, or in this case I'm going to use a wooden skewer, but you're going to shove a pick through, and if it comes out clean, like this, if it's clean, then that means it is done. So now you're going to let it, you're going to move the cake. So you're going to move the pan off the rack onto a cooling rack, and you're going to let it cool for 15 minutes. All right, so it just occurred to me that I did not intend to unfrost this cake. So I'm actually going to cut off a slice, and I'm going to sample it. Well, it's hot anyway. It's like eating. And this is how the final product should look like. We're now gonna do a taste test. This is really good. So that's how to bake cake from scratch, especially making the batter. So thanks for tuning in. I hope to see you next time.